Hello, friends. Hello, friends. A tradition unlike any other.
Oh, my goodness. In your life, have you seen anything like that?
There it is! Adam Scott, a life changer.
Mashed potato!
Here it comes.
Welcome back to the 19th Tee podcast. Drudes with you for tonight's episode. And again, we've called in the relief pitcher, as I just called him before we started recording. No Marshy tonight. The big fella's unwell, but we've called in the relief pitcher, as I mentioned. Lukas Michel joins us from Tasmania, where he's been spending a lot of his life in a bulldozer at the moment down at 7 Mile Beach. And we're going to get into all of that and plenty more. But Lukas, thanks so much for joining us as the co-host. I think I was trying to work it out before. I think it's your fifth time on the episode. I was trying to think. So you're certainly leading the pack in terms of guests.
No, thanks. Great to be back. Looking forward to having a little catch up and chat about, everything golf as you do.
Absolutely, mate. You're down in Tassie, as you mentioned. You're spending your time in a bulldozer working on 7 Mile Beach, which will absolutely get stuck into plenty. But how are you finding the change of scenery for yourself? Obviously, a hugely accomplished amateur golfer, and now you're turning your hand in shaping sand into golf courses.
Yeah, no, it's been an awesome experience. It was one of those things that the opportunity came up to help out constructing the 7 Mile Beach golf course, and having seen pictures of the land that Mike Clayton had sent me, and then going on site visits with him to see it, I knew it would be pretty special. And so, I obviously still have potential professional golf ambitions, but the opportunity to help build a golf course of this stature, which I know it's going to debut very, very high, I think, knowing, I've been around and played a lot of great golf courses, and this is a piece of land that's every bit as good as any of the ones I played. So knowing the potential of the place, I sort of jumped on that opportunity. So yeah, as you said, I've been in a bulldozer, pretty much spending every day on site down here, shaping fairways and, bits and pieces around the place. Probably not yet the important stuff like the greens and bunkers, because we've got a very experienced guy in Mike DeVries, who obviously most famously Kate Wickham co-designed that, and it's been great to learn off him, and he's doing the important stuff. I'm just still learning how to operate the thing, and I actually feel like I'm getting pretty decent at it now, so looking forward to getting a little bit more responsibility maybe with it, and maybe I'll get to shape some important stuff in the next couple of months.
It's all important. Even fairways are important, and tee boxes. Yeah. Everything's important in a golf course. We'll dive into 7 Mile Beach very shortly, but we should run through a couple of results, and we'll start on the Aussie Tour at home over here at the WA Open, which was quite exciting because I spent 4 days out there. I was caddying for David Micheluzzi, which was a lot of fun. I learned a great deal, and we're going to have him on for a bit of a review, and he can tell me all the things I did wrong for him. But Braden Becker, who is a WA boy, he got the chockies in quite dramatic fashion. And I'm going to assume, Lukas, that you probably been in a bulldozer. You may not have seen the dramatic fashion, and correct me if I'm wrong here. But so what's happened is Nathan Barbieri has shot his second shot long of the green to the fringe at the back, and Braden has then shot his fourth shot as a wedge, flown it long. It's hit Nathan's ball and rolled back to a foot for a tap in par.
My God.
And then Hayden Hopewell's 3-putted, and Braden Becker takes a 1-shot win.
Wow.
So quite a remarkable set of circumstances there. A big crowd out at Royal Freo. Hayden Hopewell, obviously the winner last year, plays out of Royal Freo. So showed that his game was no fluke last year. But quite dramatic fashion for Braden there. And then, of course, we head up to the NT PGA this week, which is the season ender. Braden Becker rises about 600 spots in the world, courtesy of that win at the WA Open, I might add. Jed Morgan's wrapped up the Order of Merit, courtesy of his win at the Aussie PGA, 190,000 under his belt. Blake Windred, 125,000. It is still mathematically possible for Blake to fall out of that top three, but very unlikely. Mm-hmm. But then it's a bit interesting with Andrew Dote and Jimmy Papadakis are pretty equal. Anthony Quayle, obviously spending a bit of time in Japan. He's still a possibility. I think he's coming back to Australia, Quayle. I'm not too sure, but I was gonna pose the question to you: the money earnings side of things being the I guess being the criteria for the Order of Merit. Is it time for us to potentially explore a points-based Order of Merit, or is money still the way to be going? Because having a few conversations with guys on the ground this week, there was a sense of not wanting to take anything away from Jed and his accomplishment at the Aussie PGA, but after that, I mean, hasn't had the most consistent season. So essentially is winning the Order of Merit off the back of winning one tournament. Is it potential that we should look at a points-based system so that when amateurs win tournaments, they can still accumulate points? I mean, there's so many different ways. Have you got any thoughts on that? Obviously, having spent a bit of time in and around the tour itself.
Yeah, I think I actually haven't thought about it myself, but I think that would make sense, because when you've got the structure of the Australian Tour is that there's generally a handful of events that give a lot of money out, and then there's sort of those tier 2 events where there's not a lot of money. And I think currently the structure, there might be a tier 2 money list, or in the past there has been both a tier 1 and a tier 2 money list, and that has allowed players to get like a better rank for the next year's tour if they play well in the tier 2 events. But I think probably a points-based system, because it might actually promote some guys to actually go out and play the smaller events as well, because getting guys down, some of the better players maybe to go play an NTPGA. This year it's quite important. Obviously the NTPGA, it's the last event of the season, so you get a lot of guys out there, but generally it sits like sort of right in the middle of the year, and guys might be out in Japan or Europe or wherever, and they might not have a need to play an NTPGA. But if there's a few more points on offer relative to the prize money, which obviously is less, they might be enticed to go play it. So that could be a good idea. Yeah, I hadn't personally thought about it a lot, but I assume that's what the FedEx Cup, the strategy there is, because obviously a lot of the events there, like the fall season events, still hold full FedEx ranking points, and so that kind of gets a few guys out early in the season to try and lock up their card before the big guys come out, the big guns come out later in the year.
Yeah, I think it's just worth something potentially exploring, whether that's because I think even when we look at the great work that the TPS events had this year with obviously having male and female players playing alongside each other, and Hannah Green obviously winning that fantastic event. It wasn't necessarily relative to the Order of Merit either. So obviously Hannah took the full prize money, which still impacted the Order of Merit. So the top ranked male in that wasn't getting full credit for finishing on top of the tour for that week. So I think there's some tweaks that can be made, but it'll be interesting to see if that's something that they look to explore in the next couple of years. But it's going to be an exciting finish to the end of the year. So looking forward to who skewers that third DP World Tour card. Speaking of the DP World Tour, let's have a quick mention of that, because this has been a long time coming for me, Lucas. I have been very, very hot on this man, Adri Arnau. I've been singing his praises for many, many months, and just hoping that he was to get over the line. And it finally happened this week at the Catalunya Championship. There were 6 playoff holes, I believe. They went up and down 18 5 times before they finally moved to 17. I think there needs to be something written into the laws of the game that we can't go up and down 18 over and over, because particularly at an event like this where the par 4 is pretty standard, right? Like everyone was making pars, And then we moved to 17, which I think was a par 3, and then bang, straight away we get a result. Like, shouldn't we just go to the most risk reward hole, regardless of if that's 18 or not? I know there's broadcast implications and the cameras are all set up there, but from an architecture point of view, surely like risk reward would make for greater TV.
Yeah, it kind of speaks to, we sometimes talk about half par holes being the most interesting. So a hole that doesn't necessarily fit the definition of a par 4 or a par 5 or a par 3 for that matter. So like a short par 4, for instance, a short par 3, or sort of like a mid, sort of between a 4 and a 5, like a 460, 70 meter hole. Generally that's going to give you a nice spread of outcomes and whittle things down pretty quickly. But yeah, you can understand obviously playing the 18th, all the crowd's already set in place and there's cameras already out there, and European Tour is big, but it's not the PGA Tour, so they probably can't move things around as easily. So probably makes sense, but yeah, you're right. Sort of telling that they change the hole and straight away you get an outcome. So
the PGA Tour, I didn't catch a lot of this week. The Mexico Open at Vedanta, Jon Rahm was the winner, and unsurprising with a strength of field ranking of 151, which is pretty woeful. One of the weakest fields that I've seen for quite some time. The only other name that really jumps out at me is Tony Finau, and surprisingly or unsurprisingly, he finished in second place, T2, alongside Kurt Kitayama and Brandon Wu. I mean, it kind of just feels like this, if Jon Rahm didn't win this, it would be a disappointment, obviously going in as the highest ranked player, and no disrespect to the other players on tour, but I mean, there's a big gap between Jon Rahm and the rest of these players. I just wonder if this is going to be the beginning of something for Jon Rahm. Obviously, he's just been so uber consistent for a long time, and that win at the US Open was fantastic, but I think everyone, golf fans more broadly, would maybe like to see a little more out of John. I don't know. At majors, I think he's competed well at majors, but he probably maybe deserves one or two by this time. Yeah,
his golf lately, probably like the last, I guess, since the US Open's been a little bit flat. Like not a lot of, a guy that probably should be winning a lot more than he does, I think. But obviously, like you said, he's quite consistent. He's probably been a little bit of in a bit of a lull. I mean, obviously, it was so hot around Memorial, and then the US Open. Obviously, Memorial was. I saw some things on Twitter. It was like the only thing that could stop Jon Rahm winning tomorrow was a positive COVID test.
Yeah,
that's what happened last time. Well, although to be fair, he almost did. The putter was very cold, from what I understand. That last round. But it's I don't know. Hopefully we see him kick on. He does deserve more wins. I think they said he's only got 7 official PGA Tour wins, which, if you'd told me that, and having not known the number, I probably would have expected him to be at least 12 or 13 by now. So, but he is young.
He is. I think we forget that because he certainly looks a lot older than what he is. I think, you look at his Masters results, right? Going back to 2018, 4th, T9, T7, T5, and then this year T27. And I think people maybe got a little disappointed in that, but had a fantastic run at the majors last year, T5 Masters, T8 PGA Championship, won the US Open, and T3 at the Open. So he's certainly still a big game player. I think he's just potentially been a little bit out of it for a couple of months, but I'm sure we'll see him back and raring to go at the PGA Championship. Lastly, last one to mention, we did have an Australian winner around the world this week, which was fantastic to see. And regular listeners to this show will know that I am a big trophy guy. I really get around what the trophies are handed out. And the trophy that Harrison Endicott received for winning the Huntsville Championship in Alabama on the Corn Ferry Tour by 5 strokes was elite. I don't know what Huntsville does. I don't know if that's the place, but it was a large rocket, and that was sick. I absolutely loved that. Didn't quite pip the NT PGA Championships crocodile head skull, but this was great. Harrison Endicott obviously been, pretty talented as we know. He turned pro, I think, back in, maybe 2016 or 2017. He lost in a playoff at the Vic Open a few years ago. He lost his mum to ovarian cancer when he was 19, and then, just has gone on to play some fantastic golf, and really looks like if he continues the way that he's going, he's going to have a PGA Tour card. And he was quite emotional after the round, as you would be. But you've obviously played a bit of golf with Harrison. I mean, maybe you can kind of contextualize this a little bit for us.
Yeah. I mean, Harrison was obviously a really well accomplished amateur in Australia. Certainly won a handful of those national ranking events. And I think he probably turned pro maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So he's been a little bit quiet since. Like, I haven't sort of a guy I almost forgot about, really. Like, there was so much talent come through the amateur ranks. There's a lot of guys that just sort of, they go a little quiet, but I mean, it was great to see him go out there and win. And I just had to look up that trophy. It's the George C. Marshall Space Flight Center, located in Huntsville, Alabama. So it's the NASA center where they develop the Apollo rockets.
How good's that?
Yeah. But yeah, obviously awesome to see Harrison win that. And yeah, I think it sets him up really nicely. Hopefully he can have a really solid finish to the season and wrap up one of the 25 cards that are not have to go through the finals. Yeah.
I think one of the things that kind of stood out to me, and this is a bit of a tangent here, spending 4 days at the WA Open and obviously, caddying for David and seeing him up close, but also we played with Brett Rankin, we played with Doug Klein, and just hanging around a few other guys, and then Minwoo Lee was on the driving range. It was so obvious, like, how good a ball striking all those players have, and it just. I think I realized it, but I didn't realize it until I was actually looking at it. Like, it's amazing to see guys, regardless. I think it's made it more impressive for me now to see someone like Harrison go from Australia, playing out of Avondale, I think was correct. Yeah. A kid to go from Avondale over to the States and win on the Corn Ferry Tour. Like, yes, it's the second level down, but like the Corn Ferry Tour has a lot of really, really, really good players on it. Like,
yeah, you could make the argument the Corn Ferry Tour is almost the second strongest tour in golf. Like, with like European tours, very, very strong, but a lot of the time it's top heavy, whereas the Corn Ferry Tour is really deep. And so I actually think the Corn Ferry might be deeper than the European Tour, but just doesn't have the star power. But obviously, as I'm sort of thinking about, maybe I turn pro, maybe I'm doing that. The last place I'd want to try and go is the Corn Ferry Tour, because there's just so many good players there. I'd certainly be sort of aiming towards either the Asian Tour or the European Tour, or maybe Japan, because I just think the opportunities are a little better, a little less competitive there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a good segue to talking about 7 Mile Beach. You were mentioning it before, spending a lot of time on the dozer, and I was going to ask you, what is the plan? Are you going to turn attention to architecture and following the footstep of Clates and DeVries, or is golf still the plan? Where are you at the moment?
Still really figuring things out. I mean, there's some really good opportunities at the moment with the architecture. COVID's actually been a little bit of a boom for golf, as we're probably mostly aware. Like, a lot of people have picked up the sport and have had a little bit of extra time working from home and all of that. So a lot of clubs are pretty flush with cash, and there's also some opportunities overseas as well with Clayton DeVries and Pont, who that's who I'm working for at the moment. And so I'm sort of at the moment just, I guess, making the most of those opportunities. I obviously still think that it would be nice to turn pro and play professional golf, but in the short term, I'm sort of focusing on the golf architecture, getting as much experience as I can. And 7 Mile Beach there's not a better place to really start getting that experience. It's basically a big sand pit where I can mess around in the bulldozer and not really screw anything up. So it's a great place to learn, and learning plenty from guys like Mike DeVries and Mike Clayton, who are really obviously like the top of their field. I'm spending every day with Mike DeVries, getting constant feedback on what I'm doing, how I'm operating the machine, and he's a big bulldozer guy. He does everything in a bulldozer. He does bunkers, does greens, does everything. So getting plenty of feedback from him on what I'm doing wrong, and occasionally a thumbs up if I'm doing something right. So it's been a great learning experience down here.
You mentioned before it's going to make 7 Mile Beach is going to make a big splash in Australian golf, I think. Obviously, the top 100 rankings were released the other day from Australian Golf Digest, and unsurprisingly, Royal Melbourne was at the top. And the question was asked, is it ever going to be knocked off? And I think the short answer is no. Right? Obviously, you've played it a lot more than I have, and you've played in that sandbelt a lot more. And we had Clates on the show a few weeks back, and we asked him a similar question of like, how good can 7 Mile Beach be? Like, where is it going to land in the rankings? Is it a top 20 course in Australia? Because I think there's been very few courses. I can't really think of many that have received as much attention in its infancy phase as what 7 Mile Beach has. Maybe Sandringham Links got a lot because I guess of its relationship to and proximity to Royal Melbourne. But like, I think everyone's talking about 7 Mile Beach. If you're into golf and you're into golf architecture, that's all anyone's talking about.
Yeah. I think there is a lot of hype around it, and Matt Goggins cautious of not trying to do too much with that, because you don't want people seeing everything and feeling like they know what every single hole looks like on the golf course before they get there. You want some of the experiences of playing the golf course to be a surprise, but at the same time, I think the hype's certainly warranted. It's probably, as good of a piece of land I've seen for it to put a golf course on. I haven't been to Cape Wickham. That's a place I really want to go. I think that had some, good hype behind it when that was sort of getting built. And I'd say probably the last course to have a similar amount of hype was probably that. But it's, that was 2013. It's a different time now. You got social media. Everyone can, find photos of 7 Mile Beach, everywhere, because, we've been posting photos as much as we can. But I think the hype's warranted. I think it's an incredible piece of land. But we don't want to give too much away of everything. We want people to come here and see things they haven't seen on Instagram and Twitter. So we're cautious of that.
What is it about the land that makes it so special? Because obviously there's some great photos on Instagram which you've taken and posted there, and I think to the untrained eye, and I certainly include myself in that category, it can be difficult to envision what a golf course is going to look like in that piece of land, because it's just hills and shrubs, and you kind of go, I could sort of envision that a little bit, but like, what makes it so special? Is it being on the ground now? Can you kind of articulate that?
Yeah, I think I would describe the ground as very linksy. So, and you'll be familiar with a golf course like the Cut.
Yeah.
So the Cut is, it's got quite heaving sand dunes. Melbourne people maybe a little bit more like the Mornington Peninsula, the National or something like that. So it's got quite heaving sand dunes, but the whole golf course is built kind of on a tilted plane that faces the ocean. Right. So pretty much from every hole, you're looking at water, which is obviously never a bad thing. And it's quite a pretty beach as well. But the views are beautiful, obviously the water, and you got Mount Wellington and a few hills around Hobart sort of in the background. You got some backdrop on a few holes of some pine trees, which that's a different look for Australia, because we don't really have any golf courses with pine trees on them that I can, that are certainly in the top. Maybe Royal Adelaide's the only one I can think of that's one of the top courses that has a few pine trees on it. So that's something different. But just the topography is just incredibly varied. You've got huge dunes, you've got small dunes, you've got really rumpled stuff near the ocean. So as you sort of traverse the site with the routing, you kind of experience a lot of the different elements of the routing that takes you through those different areas. So yeah, it's a really good piece of land, and there's almost no better that I've seen, certainly in Australia and even around the world. It kind of reminds me maybe a little bit of a place like Royal County Down, but I'd say you got probably more ocean views. And the back nine at Royal County Down, you don't really see the ocean at all, and there's a big dune that kind of obstructs a lot of the views from the front nine as well. So, but in terms of the scale of the property, I'd say it's somewhat similar to Royal County Down, which is not a bad thing, given that's in the top 5 or so courses in the world.
And I think, the big difference will be the accessibility, right? You try and go play Royal County Down, and I think you're going to be pushing shit uphill.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit cheaper as well. I think you can get on those places as an international, but it'll cost you an arm and a leg. Whereas 7 Mile Beach, we're hoping to, probably put it somewhere in that Barnbougle Dunes price range, make it very accessible. And in terms of access, it's a golf course that's going to be 10 minutes from Hobart Airport, which is got direct flights from all the capital cities in Australia. So, it's like going to be super, super accessible, which is one of the most exciting things about it, I think, in that it's in a major city like Hobart, which is a really, really cool town. And I've had a really good time here, and I'm looking forward to exploring it a little bit more in the few months that I've got left.
There's a course in Tasmania that's always fascinated me called Ratho Farm. I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you been out there?
I've heard of it. Yeah. I think it's the oldest golf course in Australia. Yeah.
Yes.
But I haven't been out there.
Yeah, I reckon you'd love it. I reckon you'd absolutely love it. I think my question was going to be: once 7 Mile Beach opens, if it wasn't already, does it make Tasmania Australia's best public golf destination? By the time you got Barnbougle, Eagle Farm,
Ratho Farm.
Oh my God, Ratho Farm, Eagle Farm. What the fuck's that? That's a race course, isn't it? In Queensland.
You've been watching too much of the horses.
Jesus, yeah, apparently. Ratho Farm, you've got. I think you can get. I think you can get onto Royal Hobart if you play your cards right. You'll have Tasmania. There's, you've got Cape Wickham. You're going to have 7 Mile. Like, it just seems like you're going to have a really, really good bunch of courses, all within like a 3-hour drive. Whereas Melbourne and the Sandbelt will clearly have better golf, for lack of a term, but the accessibility, like I can't just rock up and walk on the Pga or any of the others, right? So
no, you're right.
Like, in your mind, does it kind of just stand out as the clear favorite?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Tassie's, with Barnbougle, 7 Mile, and then a short flight to King Island, as well as, Tassie Golf Club, Royal Hobart, the ones you mentioned. There's some really good accessible options there. The only place I can think that really compares is obviously the Mornington Peninsula. You've got a few courses. Some of them are private, but a place like Portsea you can get on fairly easily. It's sort of like semi-private. And then obviously St Andrews Beach, the dunes, the courses at Myrtle Links. So that would be the only spot where you've got a real condensed area of golf that might compete. But the quality of, with the two plus sort of a half courses at Barnbougle with the new Boogle Run, and then 7 Mile, which I reckon give it 5 years and there probably will be 2, maybe 3 golf courses at 7 Mile Beach. It looks like so. It's certainly going to be a bit of a public golf hotspot, I think, down here.
Yeah, Clates mentioned that there was certainly future plans for a second or even third golf course, which will be exciting. I guess what's been the direction from the team from Clates and Mike DeVries that you've been obviously working very closely with around moving earth? Because I know obviously you're obviously spending a lot of time in a bulldozer, but I think there's something romantic about a natural golf course that doesn't have any earth moved, right? Like, it's this fantasy dream that we all have to find this perfect piece of land, and it's like, whack some grass down and away we go, right? But in reality that's not the case. Like,
No.
is the team trying to kind of invent holes and shape to be the holes, or just working with the land that's kind of there?
Yeah, that's sort of been one of the areas I think where I've probably learned the most. So it's like I was sort of explaining, it's a very sort of wild and dramatic piece of ground. So it's probably not what you describe as like perfect for golf in the sense that you couldn't just cut some grass and play like maybe St Andrews or one of the subtler links courses, Port Marnock or somewhere like that. So it's got some really dramatic topography. And if you were to just try and grow grass and cut it on there, for starters, it would be probably impossible to grow grass on some of the slopes because they're just so severe. And secondly, the walk around the site would just be like, you'd be buggered. It's because it's just, it's up and down. So we've worked really hard on softening a lot of the contour, particularly the areas where you're walking and playing golf, but also trying to make them look as natural as possible and tying into the surrounding landscape. So the ideal would be for you to come play in, a couple of years' time and look at it and go, wow, they really just moved hardly anything here, didn't they?
Yeah.
When in reality, a lot has to be moved to really make that experience as best as possible for the golfers that are playing. Because if we were just to leave it, there'd be balls collecting in hollows everywhere, and everyone would be, playing from divots all the time, and every second shot would be blind, and it just wouldn't be as good as it could be. But the focus is definitely on what you talked about in creating something that's natural, but obviously making it look natural when in reality there's a little bit more work going on than you'd think. But there's certainly some areas on the course I was sort of saying before where some of the rumpled terrain in spots is really ideal for golf, particularly the low stuff sort of nearer the coast. There'll be very little moved on, holes like 15 maybe. It'll be a lot less, or 10, just because they play through some of the subtler ground. 9's another one. So there'll be spots where we leave almost everything intact, and I think they'll be really, really cool golf holes in their own right. But I certainly think on top of that, some of the stuff where we've had to move a lot, the end result is something that's so super dramatic that it makes moving all that dirt and all that time in a bulldozer worth it. So Can
you picture the outcome? Can you picture like the final product of maybe not of the whole thing, but of individual holes? Can you?
Yeah, we've probably at this point, we're in early May. We've been on site I've been on site for about 3 months. Mike's only been shaping for maybe 4 months, but we've got roughly 8 holes that are shaped now, in a rough state. They're not irrigated. So what happens is you rough things in, and then we've got the superintendent. He's going to get his crew to install the irrigation, and at that point you can start grassing. So once the irrigation goes in, they make a bit of a mess, with digging trenches and that. So we got to clean all that up, get the green and the surrounding areas to be really, perfect for putting seed down, and then we can seed it and water it and start growing grass. So we've got 8 holes in the ground, and on those 8 holes you can see what they're going to look like. But we're not far now. We'll probably start getting some grass down on those holes in the next few weeks. So it won't be long and we'll start seeing a bit of seed popping, which that'll be exciting because we haven't seen any green grass growing in the fairways other than a little bit of marram, which is just like a beach grass.
Yeah.
So it'd be exciting to see some nice fescue turf growing in the next couple of weeks.
What do you think the playability is going to be like for the public, right? Like, obviously this is so highly touted, as we've spoken about. There's a heap of people talking about it. And I think one of the things that kind of stood out, obviously talking to Clates about this, was that he really does want it to be playable for someone like me as a high handicapper in the 20s. but for someone like yourself, who's like, a very, very good golfer, what are you playing off at the moment? Plus what?
+4 maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, something
right.
like that. I haven't played a lot of golf, though.
But
I'm just holding it there.
Yeah, but I think it's always this pipe dream of architects is that we want it to be playable for the high handicapper, but challenging for the really good golfer. And it's like, I think when you walk onto some golf courses, is that perhaps that may not necessarily be true. It was always a pipe dream that we thought, yes, that we're going to do this in the back of our mind. But like, how do you kind of balance that when you're working on the ground and you're seeing it? Are there holes where you go, this is going to be a genuinely hard shot for a 20 handicapper?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, everyone obviously aspires to some sort of goal like that, unless you're building the next, I don't know, tournament course that's never going to, see too many crappy golfers. But I'd say, it's like I was just saying, it's a dramatic piece of ground. So by definition, there's going to be some pretty demanding golf shots on it. But at the same time, we're very mindful that this is a public access golf course. So we do want your, everyday hacker to be able to come out, enjoy it. They're going to lose a couple balls. The Marram grass is going to get pretty thick. If you've been to Barnbougle, that place is covered in Marram, but there'll be plenty of width. You might lose a handful of balls, but we just hope that there's enough enjoyable golf, and the focus is on making enjoyable golf, not impossibly difficult golf. But yeah, there should be enough enjoyable golf for your fairly ranked beginner to have a good time. And it's a beautiful place. The views are great. So even if they can barely hit a ball, even just walking around, it's going to be a nice experience. But certainly we're mindful of that. And I think your beginners are still going to have a good time. We're certainly focusing on getting some tees forward in some good positions where people are not having to have any dramatic forced carries over places where they're just going to be topping it into crap. We've avoided that. So basically, the whole golf course is going to be kind of like a continuous loop of short grass, which Mike DeVries that's his vision for it. So no really defined teeing areas, just kind of like a strip of turf that kind of runs through the whole golf course, which will be a really cool idea. I don't think I've seen a golf course that does that truly like that. So I'm looking forward to obviously seeing the grassing happen, because I can kind of see it in my mind, but I'm interested to see how it all eventuates when we do get grassing.
Width and angles, obviously, two buzzwords of golf architecture, right? I think I think particularly over the last 4 days spent out at Royal Frio, like it finally all clicked to me. Width and angles. I think when you're like me and you play public golf, a lot of the time public golf courses aren't designed by teams like Clayton, DeVries and Pont and people like yourself who are working on them. They are sort of just slapped down and away they go, and angles and lines don't necessarily matter a lot of the time. There's certainly some angles that help, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're ever designed in a particular way. But has that been a focus, I guess, particularly in the context of the distance debate, which is another golf buzzword, the distance debate? I mean, has all of that sort of been either in the back of your mind when you're giving advice back to the team, or is that something that Mike's been focused on? Like, how has all of that kind of come about?
Yeah, I think that's always something that we're thinking about, giving people options.
Yeah.
When they're standing on the tee, they need to have multiple playing strategies that make them think. It's making the golfers think, making it a cerebral test rather than just a test of pure execution. And, it's going to be windy, which helps, because when it's a windy site, it's different. Every shot's different because you're always thinking about how much is this wind going to take off. All right, then from there, where am I aiming, etc. So I think, it's always back of mind, but I think that's just something that I think our team, Clayton, DeVries and Pont, and I think most, like you said, most sort of the top architects in the world are really thinking about that sort of stuff. But we also think that the golf course, if they wanted to host, a top level event in Hobart, I think, it should be top of the list for a venue because it's close to town and we're building a course. It's going to be off the back tees. It's going to be a beast. Like it'll be a big golf course. We don't really know how long it's going to be. That's sort of the nature of how we work is we kind of tweak things in the field a lot. And so, at the moment we're thinking, well, it might be a par 73 but, for tournaments, it'll be a 72 probably because there's, there might be a par 5 that becomes a par 4. But at the moment we're sort of looking at it as like, well, the holes are probably better if it's a par 73. And, that's a little bit of an odd one. I can't think of too many par 73s that are in the, top rankings of golf courses. It's certainly going to be a big golf course, and obviously with the angles on our mind, we want the best players in the world to be able to pick and choose their options if they do happen to come down and play a tournament at 7 Mile Beach. It'd be pretty cool to see something like an Australian Open played over the course at some point.
I agree. I think it'd just be great to have a tour stop in Tasmania, to be honest. We were talking about this the other week. Like, it's, as we were saying before, it's arguably the best public golf facilities in the country, and we don't have a tour stop in Tasmania. And I think that's criminal. So hopefully that changes. I guess in terms of obviously you're talking about the severity of the land and the slopes and the mounds. In my head, and you're gonna have to talk me off the ledge here, I'm thinking like Tobacco Road, right? Like,
yeah,
to that level. Is that kind of where, like, can you kind of place it in terms of where it's going to end up? Is it going to? Can you give us another course that we might know that would, is it going to be a Barnbougle type setup? Obviously, not having been out there, but
Yeah, I think probably like most Aussie golfers, the most similar sort of look and feel would probably be Barnbougle, because it is a links course. It's on the ocean. In terms of the scale of the features, Barnbougle's got a bit of everything that 7 Mile has, I'd say. The difference is 7 Mile probably, so the dune ridge that Barnbougle's on is quite narrow. And so it's very much sort of like an out and back routing with both nines. Whereas, 7 Mile's got a lot more width to the property. And so we're not sort of constrained to having holes running, in sort of such a linear direction. So there is a bit more width to the property in that way. And so, but I'd say in terms of scale of features, probably not too different to Barnbougle, maybe a little bigger and brawnier in spots, but yeah.
I just feel like this project is right in your wheelhouse. Like, you just must be so pumped to be working on it. Like, you love your golf architecture, you love your golf more broadly, and I guess to be, playing in the sand of a site that's going to become one of the best public access golf courses in the country must be like a dream come true for someone, obviously like yourself, where COVID certainly halted your career in a lot of ways, but you've picked up another passion. Like, you must just be like pumped working on it.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing photos of the site in about 2011 or 2012. I remember, probably 2012. I remember Clates posted something on Twitter, and I remember seeing it and being like, "Oh, that looks awesome!" And every year every few months, I'd ask Clates, "Oh, any news of 7 Mile Beach? Any news of 7 Mile Beach?" And then it was funny. Eventually, kind of started. Clates would say, "Oh, yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen." This is still like 2019, and then I actually played with Matt Goggin at the Australian Open in 2019, just after I won the mid-air, and coincidentally we paired and we got chatting, and then a few weeks later, Goggin rang up Clates and said, "Yeah, like green light, let's do it." Then obviously COVID hits, but they got Mike DeVries down in early 2020 to figure out the routing with Clates, and then I sort of started getting involved later that year. So It's been something that's been on the radar for quite some time. And, if I look back to 2012 and I was looking at photos of that course and someone told me, oh, you're going to be building it, I would have said, you're pulling my leg. Like, it is a dream come true. So it's an incredible experience. And the superintendent, Anthony Toogood, said to me, it's a funny one. Like, I've been in the industry for 40 years or however long it's been in it, 30 something years. And actually, I'm probably doing a disservice to his age there. We'll say 30 years. And, this will be the best project I'm ever part of. And then he said to me, but, you're just starting and this will also probably be the best project you're part of, which, he wasn't trying to be, mean or cynical about my opportunities, potential future opportunities, but he's probably right.
Yeah.
It's an amazing one to start with. So, I'm just sort of soaking up the experience and enjoying it as best I can, and looking forward to what the next few months has in store for, hopefully getting this thing close to finished.
What have you learned? Have you, you must have just been like a sponge around these guys, right? Like, obviously Clates is a legend of Australian golf, and he's done some fantastic stuff architecturally. And Mike DeVries strikes me as one of the most smart, which is a stupid way to say it, the smartest golfing minds out there, just from things that I've read and things that I've seen with him, just the way that he kind of articulates and he's very good at putting his vision into words. So I guess, long story short, like what have you learned from those guys?
Well, obviously, like, Clates was a guy that I've had a lot to do with for a number of years. When I joined Metropolitan Golf Club in Melbourne in 2012, where Mike's a member, we soon became pretty good friends. So we'd play golf together all the time, and learned obviously a lot about the theory of golf course design. But when it comes down to construction and actual, putting things into practice, Mike sort of takes a little bit more of a backseat, and that's where Mike DeVries is the expert. And so I spent a little bit of time with DeVries in the US in 2020 on a project he was doing, and that was me escaping COVID in Australia and prepping for my tournaments, actually, the US Open and Masters. I spent time with him there, but I got a little bit of hands-on experience there, mainly just holding a rake and digging trenches with the drainage crew, and helping fill bunkers full of sand with the contractor. So it was very basic stuff, but got to see sort of boots on the ground construction. So I learned a lot there, but I'd say DeVries, I've learned probably the most, other than construction stuff, probably the most areas that I've learned is more about the routing process and how a golf course almost tells a story as you walk it, and how important the routing and the walk around of a golf course is versus the individual holes. Like, yes, the individual holes on a golf course might be great, but how do they connect to one another? And that's something that I probably didn't appreciate until Mike and I have had lots and lots of chats about this sort of stuff. And he really focuses on the routing experience and making that super interesting for golfers as they play the golf course. And then I'd say probably on top of that, his attention to detail is like insane. Like, he'll if he could, he'd build all this golf course himself with a bulldozer, and he could do it. He could totally do it.
Yeah.
We're just here helping him. But if he could, he would. And, maybe he'd get that extra 0.5% out of it if he did, because I think it would probably be better. But, we're still here offering input, and I think that'll obviously helps get a result as well. But his attention to detail is it's second to none. He's pretty impressive what he can do with a bulldozer. And, if something's not 100% right, he won't let it just sit. He'll go and fix it. So, I'd say they're probably the two areas that I've learned from Mike DeVries.
What about, I guess, more broadly in terms of what else is the property going to have on it? I guess there's obviously going to be a clubhouse, is like accommodation, is all that sort of stuff in the pipeline. Like I've got a vision of what the clubhouse is going to look like. I don't know why I do. I've just got this vision of what the clubhouse is going to look like, but like accommodation and all that sort of stuff, is that part of the plan? Like,
yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't actually seen any photos of or any sketches or anything of the clubhouse design, but there's obviously an architect and they're discussing that right now. There was an original plan, but it was based on previous permitting and development approvals. So the clubhouse has moved location slightly, so I think they've got to go through another process of getting the design up to spec. But I haven't seen any photos of what the clubhouse will look like, but knowing Matt Goggin and his background, he does a bit of property development, I think, and project management. So he's sort of in that industry. And so I think, from the conceptual stuff I've seen that the architect has done, I think it'll be something that's really cool. In terms of cabins and accommodation, they're planning for some on-site accommodation. Not sure whether that'll be there from day one, but I think, certainly in the 12 months post-opening, I think something like that will be sorted. So, I think the plan is to have on-site accommodation, but it's a little different of a project to Barnbougle in that you can quite easily stay in Hobart, just drive in, or even like if you're in Melbourne, you could fly in the morning, play the golf course, and fly home in the evening. So
I think that's massive for it, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, it could just be a day trip sort of thing if you're from Melbourne. So it's less important than a place like Barnbougle to get that stuff right.
We'll get you out of here very shortly, but I imagine that this must get your architectural juices flowing, right? Like when I go and play a course and then I really love it. I find myself at night on Google Maps looking at the course over and over and going, geez, I don't remember that bit being there, or wow, that dog leg's a lot more than what it felt like. Finding other pieces of land that I'm like, geez, that would be really cool if there was a golf course there. Like, are you on Google Maps just doing this, or do you think there's other sites around Australia that could be something similar to obviously what 7 Mile is, or just a development piece? Like, what's this done for you architecturally?
It's definitely opened my eyes up to kind of how easy it is to build good golf course architecture. Like the actual building process, if you've got pure sand, like all you need is a bulldozer and an experienced operator, and you can kind of build golf. Like it's actually not that hard. It gets harder when you're trying to fit golf on a site that doesn't suit it. And so 7 Mile Beach, the site's very, very suitable for golf. So it is pretty easy. It's funny that obviously, like I said, there's potential for maybe 2 more golf courses down here. And obviously we've got topographical maps of the land and the lease of where, the extra golf courses might go. And so I've been messing around, on Adobe Illustrator, just drawing out, this is a potential routing. And because the site's just next door, I can just go for a little walk on my lunch break and go see, that hole's pretty good. So I've definitely been messing around, figuring out where that might be. But, everyone thinks, there's only so many, everyone used to think anyway, this is what I hear, that, in the 90s and, early 2000s, all the great sites for golf have already been used or found. But, as we both know, the WA coastline, there's a couple thousand kilometers of pure sand and sand dunes that you could build a world-class golf course on. It's just whether it's actual business, reality, whether that something like that could succeed. I definitely think you could do it. You just need the funding and
got to get the right investor.
Yeah, the funding, and I'm not sure what the water situation is, whether the bore water, would do it. But it's not expensive to build good golf on sand. This project. This will be one of the best golf courses in Australia when it opens, but it's effectively being built on a shoestring budget. So, it doesn't have to be expensive.
I told Clates about Lancelin, and obviously you put me onto Lancelin and going up there, and I was like blown away by it. And Ledge Point as well was really cool. And I told Clates and I said, well, when you're over here, like let me know. I'll take the day off work and we'll go up there together. We'll have a beer at the pub and we'll go and play the golf course and just walk around. Because I still think, I say it to people all the time, I don't know what the investment would need to be, but like I think it could be something very special over here, and there's plenty of spots even over here, I think it could be.
Yeah, Lancelin's just got great bones. I mean, it's a shame. I think they're just down to 9 holes now, aren't they? They used to be 18, which is a shame because I think the 9 they lost was arguably, you could say it's better.
Yeah.
Like it was really, really awesome. So, I mean, it's all out there. It's just cleared, but obviously it's left to grow weeds, unfortunately. But which is a shame, but it could easily be put back, I'm sure, with a little bit of money.
Sure. That's right. Got to find the right investor and investing in it for the right reasons as well. So, but mate, thanks for coming on and having a chat to us for the last hour. It's been a lot of fun to obviously chat a bit of world golf, but mainly about 7 Mile, which is just an incredible project, which you're obviously hands got very dirty in and amongst it, which we absolutely love, mate. So I'm sure we'll have you back on in the next few months to get the next update, and we might get Matt Goggin on as well to give us a bit of an overview, and we can't wait to get out there and have a site tour at some point and come back and play it when it's all done, because mate, this is, as I say, is the most exciting project in Australian golf at the moment. So thanks for coming on, mate, giving us the lowdown. We love it. We love having you on.
No worries.
And, mate, you're keeping that seat very warm for Marshy, and couple more times I reckon he might be out and you might have a full-time gig. But thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Yeah, enjoyed it a lot. Thanks, mate.